We have him, ladies and gentlemen. J. Fod is in the house. J F O'Donnell. He's on the internet. How you doing there, J. Fod?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure, man.
Fiorella, it's a pleasure to meet you. I think you're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I mean, you came on at one of the most heated times that we've had.
Yeah. A lot of fire. Also, people that I know very well and feel very, very upset how they're completely out to lunch about what's going on. And I've never talked publicly about it, but you know what? We can't sit on the fence at this point, you know?
So I just want to get your opinion then right off the bat on the whole, the trucker convoys are a bunch of right wingers. Like, what do you think about that?
It's insane. Just watch the live streams. Just watch the live streams and see who's there. It's obviously people of all walks of life that are supporting freedom in Canada, that are against mandates. And they know something's up. And they know this is more than just about mandates. They know this is about a new infrastructure of biosecurity control that is going to usher in all sorts of levels of censorship and surveillance. Maybe they don't know it all completely, but they know something's going on. And honestly, as smart as they are and as politically savvy as they are, it seems like Ben and Rania have no idea about the fourth industrial revolution. They have no idea about the Great Reset. They have no idea about technocracy, about techno-fascism, all of this stuff that is a complete game changer. It's basically, you have to look at it as a class struggle of people who know what's going on versus the technocrats who are trying to control every aspect of our lives with technology. And so it's changed the game. They're stuck in 2019. They have platforms that they've built up. Maybe they don't want to, maybe they feel like they're going to lose some sort of following, but the truth is they would only gain a following because telling the truth attracts people. So either they're being disingenuous or they actually have a blind spot. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was my next question was, do you think they're being disingenuous or do you think they have a blind spot? I think it could be a little bit of both, because I think there's a factor in that plays in here that it's a lot of right wingers who are a little bit more, their radar is a little bit more keen to this, right? Like we start diving into the fourth industrial revolution, you're definitely going to see a lot more right wingers at play there. People who have right wing ideology, I should say, are a little bit more involved with this stuff, have been looking into the stuff, the Epstein stuff as well for quite some time. Do you think that plays a factor into their decision making?
Well, I think it's been framed. I think that the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution have been framed as a far right wing conspiracy. And that's been done on purpose in order to divide and conquer and have a lot of people not look at it. I mean, once you start looking at it, it's so pervasive. They're just like hiding in plain sight. It's crazy. I mean, Klaus Schwab wrote a book called COVID-19, The Great Reset. The book exists. Now they just wrote the great narrative about selling everybody on it. Which is crazy. So I think that there is this belief if they're pro mandate, if that's their ideology and they think that the injections are all good, then I guess it's hard for them to sympathize with people who are speaking out against them. But they're also, turning a blind eye to say anything Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is talking about.
Right. Yeah. And I 100%, I want to go back to it was done this way. The CIA, again, the intelligence community has been at this for a long time. QAnon is one such psyop that was taken and riddled with a few facts with a lot of false information. And so a lot of the things that came out of QAnon that sort of resembled something like the Fourth Industrial Revolution were used to kind of dismiss anything against the empire that was that crazy. It was purposely called conspiratorial. Naomi Klein called it a conspiracy smoothie. And she was one of the most, she talked about the disaster capitalism. She was this huge environmentalist. She wrote for The Intercept many times. And she knew, either she couldn't see through it or she was one of the people that was making sure that people didn't see through this. Because if we know anything about the environmental destruction, you know that there are people there that have capitalized on environmentalism and the fight against environmentalism, that have capitalized on COVID, that have capitalized on this whole appeal to the progressive contingent as this sort of, we're going into this age where we need to do everything for the greater good. And that's the same language of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. You need to do something for your neighbors. It's not for you. It's not about you. Don't be selfish. Don't be a libertarian. It's about everybody and the greater good for everybody else. And so And it's the same language that has allowed people to become very, especially on the left, weirdly fascistic in terms of thinking they have any sort of power, any sort of authority to demand how people should, or what people should put in their bodies, and what people should be doing. And to like, there's these people that hunt anti-vaxxers online, and they dox people, and they go through this whole thing, and they say they're fighting fascism while simultaneously becoming that very fascistic entity they don't even recognize that it is them. And it's really weird, and it's very dystopian, but I think it's been a long time coming. And so I just wanted your opinion on that, on like how because the left used to be very pro free speech, anti-censorship, anti-authoritarian. They were marching the streets for war, but it wasn't like the war movement was very just this sort of leftist thing. It was like the anti-war movement was huge. And so now it's kind of flipped on its side. And I think, Donald Trump sort of like kind of pushed, and QAnon and all that pushed the right into being open to it, but also being the ones that were used as bait to mock any sort of valid criticism of the empire.
Yeah. I have so much to say to that. But one thing I want to talk about Naomi Klein, because I absolutely think, in my opinion, that she's controlled opposition for sure. She absolutely creates the parameters for what can be seen as the anti-establishment perspective, the leftist perspective. I mean, there's a reason that Klaus Schwab blurbed one of her books. I mean, yeah. That's real. That's true. And that conspiracy smoothie article she wrote for The Intercept is such a way to get people on the left to not really look at what the World Economic Forum is up to. I remember I have a friend, and he's very involved in leftist political circles, and is just becoming more and more influential. And I was really trying to talk to him about this thing. And then he found that article, and he was able to use that and justify it to dismiss conspiracy stuff around the World Economic Forum. So I saw that work firsthand. So I think that she is a serious problem. And that's my assessment of her. In terms of what's going on with the left, I don't know, man. The left has become a bunch of it's very authoritarian. It's very, very authoritarian, which is incredibly unfortunate. And it's like, how did this happen? But it's also, it's not everybody on the left. It's not everybody who's leftist. It's just leftists that haven't seen this sea change happen. And also, you know what it is? Let's be honest. The past 2 years has been the biggest propaganda campaign ever orchestrated globally in the history of the world. Okay. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that.
Yeah.
And that absolutely is going to sweep some people up in its net. And I think that a lot of people still haven't figured this shit out. They're scared, they're confused, and they're lashing out in certain ways. They're getting very tribal instead of realizing that we have to really unite. We do not have time for this left-right divide stuff. I was listening to the show earlier. I agree with you that there's no electoral path to this in my assessment, Pasta. That's my assessment right now. My assessment is parallel structures. But it's also waking as many people up as possible so less people partake in the demise of all of us. So shows like this, I think, are so important because you guys are screaming at the rooftops about what's going on. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to wake up as many people as we can. We're not going to get everybody. And we have to separate.
Yeah.
Because these CBDCs are coming in. These central bank digital currencies are coming in, this programmable money, and it's servitude. And it's going to be attached to some sort of version of a social credit score. All that shit is all that shit is happening.
Yeah.
You have the fucking head of the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, just straight up saying it. Just saying, yeah, this money, these CBDCs will be controlled by the Fed, and we can determine what people can spend their money on.
Well, first off, I just want to say I really do appreciate the fresh, clean haircut you got here on the show.
Yeah,
today.
I got to clean it up for the Convo Couch, man.
You did. Like you're coming on the Convo Couch, got a nice haircut, high and tight. But let me ask you a question. You did put up this little tweet. You retweeted that the thing with the blob of sorts going, hey, all cops are bastards and murderers and defund the police. And that was in 2019 and 2020. They got the mask on and said, these people get what they deserve. Just obey or shut up or you get what you deserve. Do you think it's worth even trying to talk to a lot of these liberals nowadays? And Have you had any success talking to conservatives and people who think differently than you?
Is it worth it? I mean, I like to think it's always worth it to try to talk to somebody. I'm willing to meet and talk with anybody on a human level. You know, I think it's sometimes good to make a human connection with somebody before trying to make a political connection. I think, let's be honest, a lot of conservatives are questioning the mainstream COVID narrative more than a lot of liberals. So there is unity there. And if there's a political realignment that separates from the left and the right, I don't care where they came from before that. I don't care about that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You know, and it's the whole thing of 2019, you know, all cops are bastards, 2021, you know, wear a mask or you get what you deserve sort of thing. It's like those people are willing to stand up for racial justice, but they're not willing to stand up for class justice. And it's ridiculous. So he said, so that was tweeted by Luke Rudkowski, and Luke said, like, what would be the perfect name for this group? And I wrote the Vax Lives Matter movement.
Fod.
Got that one.
Fam, do you want to talk about the chart I put up, or do you have another question?
No, you can go ahead. If you want to go ahead and go on that.
Well, let's pull up this chart over here, because this is why we brought you here. Let's get down to the nitty gritty, J-Fod. Fam's favorite movie, Nacho Libre.
Definitely not my favorite.
Yes, it is. The global public-private partnership. Now, when you brought this up, you know, I mean, I've been having conversations for the last couple years, working my way through this whole situation. By the way, our friend Tulsi Gabbard speaking at CPAC, you know, she was once a young global leader. I know I had to bring it up.
She still is.
You're a Tulsi. Well, she's not talking out against it. So at the end of the day, that's what's pissing me off. Right now, I want her to say something against it, but I don't want to get to that. But I want to look at this chart. Let's put this up. This is the global public-private partnership, because I've been asking this question: who's calling things? Who's running this place? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Can you give us a little kind of like your insight to this particular type of chart over here, and where nation states kind of fall, and actually what their role is in the new global governance?
Yeah, sure, Pasta. I'll explain this insane global public-private partnership flowchart.
give it just a small gloss of a macro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you talked about the Bank of International Settlements, right?
Yes, no, I absolutely will. And I'm working on a web series. I did one episode. It's called The Great Reset. It's great with a whole bunch of 8s. And the second episode is actually going to be based on this flowchart. So I have been kind of wrapping my head around it. Okay, so interestingly, something to notice on this is that look at where the national governments and the scientific authorities are. They're all the way down in the policy enforcers level. So that's 5 layers down. So that just makes you realize that the whole geopolitical thing, yes, it's important, and yes, it exists, and yes, it affects people's lives. But national governments, in terms of dictating policy, they are in the enforcer level. Now let's go all the way up to the top. And the scientific authorities like the CDC, the FDA, like we always think in our heads that, oh, the CDC, they're coming up with the policies. No, they're enforcing it. You know, so let's go back to the top. So basically you got the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, right? That's located in Basel, Switzerland. And that's the central bank for the central banks. It's basically where all the central banks go to work out their books. Yeah. So they basically create the money supply, and they're very high at the global public-private partnership nexus of hierarchical political power, right? Financial power. Then you got the central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US or like the Bank of England in the UK. And those are the money printers. But this is a big thing, and this is important to understand, is that now these central banks, they're going direct, as they call it. And what that means is they are going to directly be infusing cash into public and private institutions. So they're not only printing the money, they're also distributing the money. So that means that monetary policy and fiscal policy are both going to be run by the Federal Reserve. That's the mechanism that allows them to roll out the central bank digital currency. So monetary policy is interest rates and money printing, like the Fed has always done. Fiscal policy is what Congress and the government has done, determining where the money goes and stuff like that. So for this coup of the central banks to be pushing all of this, to be doing both, is going to lead to essentially a neo-feudal state. And they're going to be able to control the money on such a level that it's going to be insane. And so basically, leading up to the pandemic, there was about to be a massive financial crisis that was going to happen. And in order to stop that from happening, they needed the economy to stop. They basically needed lockdowns to happen so they could print enough money and push it into Wall Street, into the financial institutions, which they were doing, hundreds of billions of dollars. This is before the CARES Act. While at the same time not putting too much money into, or any money into Main Street in the real economy in order to stop hyperinflation from happening. Then when the CARES Act happened, that was a further theft of money, upward $3 trillion. And they had to give us our breadcrumbs while they still shut everything down. But that infusion of money into the system with no working happening has led to the inflation that we're dealing with now. So that's how that works. And I'm just starting to wrap my head around this sort of thing. But anyway, that's the central banks. And this is stuff that I've learned from like Catherine Austin Fitts and other people and stuff like that, you know? So this is still the policymakers. So that's basically the money people is the central banks, right? Then you got the idea people who are also the policymakers. Those are groups like the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome, Chatham House, and the Rockefellers. That's what it says on this flow chart. Yeah. Which is either made by Ian Davis, who's a great journalist, or is made by the Solari Report. I'm not sure. I couldn't figure out exactly who made this, but let's just take the World Economic Forum, for example. They, they're basically making policy of basically what would happen if there was a pandemic, how the globe would respond. That's why they sponsored Event 201. Which happened October 18th or 19th, 2019 in New York City. It was a global pandemic supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Johns Hopkins Biosecurity Health Department, people in the CIA, people up high in like Chinese banks and stuff like that, all sorts of media elites. It shows that when things get global, the geopolitical stuff goes by the wayside when you're talking about things at the World Economic Forum level. And they basically did a simulation of what would happen if there was a pandemic a few months before there was a pandemic. And then they determined how they would react accordingly. And one of the things they said they would do is they would flood the zone with information, meaning that they would make sure that their narrative was front and center every place, especially on social media, and they would start marginalizing and purging people that were not towing the corporate line. So basically those are the policy makers. Then you got the policy distributors. And this is always weird to me because the policy distributors, I would always think would be the policy makers, like the United Nations. No, the United Nations is doing the bidding of groups like the Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum is actually working in conjunction with the United Nations for the Sustainable Development Goals. They're helping them roll them out. Then you got the IMF. Then you got the Ipcc, the International Panel on Climate Change. This one's really interesting because everyone thinks, oh, this one's a good one, right? But actually it's not, because it manipulates data in order to terrify us about climate at the expense of taking care of the environment and ecological issues, while figuring out a way to create new markets for monetizing every aspect of nature. Yeah. That's the
I don't think they'll be talking about geoengineering in that particular situation over there. They'll probably stay away from it.
Exactly. Yeah. And if at any time you guys want me to stop, because I know I'm talking for a while, just let me know, but I'm trying to go through it. Should I keep going? Go
ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. You got the World Bank, you got the World Health Organization, you got the philanthropic organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and stuff like that, the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, Carnegie Endowment. Then you got global corporations, multinational corporations, and then you got the non-governmental organizations, which are all captured by corporations. So now finally we get to the policy enforcers. And that's your national governments all the way down there. And the selected scientific authorities, you know, your NIH, your FDA, your CDC, your national governments and everything that entails, military, civil service, etc.
And then below that,
you got the policy propagandists, you got the professional liars, you got the mainstream media. You got the fact checkers. The fact checkers, that's a humongous industry that really helps people not have to push through cognitive dissonance. It's fucking evil. You know what I mean? You get a fact check that's fact checking away the truth, so someone doesn't have to believe something that would give them a little bit of cognitive dissonance and have to believe. And these policy propagandists, this is who people like us are constantly fighting against, because they're losing their credibility, but they're vultures. And how pathetic are they? They're just the lapdogs of the power class. They're just these mediocre professional liars who are doing the bidding of the power structure. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you got the policy subjects, you got the public, us, and we largely pay for this shit through our taxes and through our sweat labor and through our lives. And the thing is, if you see this and internalize this whole structure here and realize it, it's just like, fuck them. We don't need their shit. I don't want your shit. I don't want your money. You know what I mean? I don't want your protection. I don't want anything from you. Yeah. I want decent human beings to get together and figure out anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a shame because people, they think the top is the enforcers, right? That's where they think the top of the chain goes. They don't realize everything that's above it. You know, even though a lot of it's in our faces, but most Americans are consumed and they don't have time to look at this shit. But thank you for breaking that down. I really do appreciate that. I find it so fucking intriguing because this is something I knew nothing about, you know.
Yeah, I only knew about it relatively recently. I think a lot of people think that the policy distributors are the policy makers.
Yeah.
If you look at those two layers.
This is something that I think a lot of us know exists, but it hasn't been laid out easily for, I think, everybody to visually see. Just, you know, we know that the World Economic Forum is powerful. We know that these institutions exist, but just seeing it laid out like that makes it so much easier for people who may not, you know, have any idea what we're talking about when we talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But it also kind of makes it so gigantic of a monster to defeat. We're all the way at the bottom here. And we're still trying to convince people that people like AOC are the enemy because they're working on behalf of the system. How do you explain to people that see this chart and they're like, this looks like a gigantic conspiracy? Are you saying that there's a gigantic conspiracy that all these people are working together to go after it? Because that's the criticism that's going to be, right? It's like, oh, this is just so you're saying that all these people that work in these industries are working together for nefarious reasons? No, they're not. It's like they think they're doing good. A lot of people think they're doing good working in these industries. A lot of the times when you get recruited on college, you get told to go work in these industries, that these are industries you want to work in. This is what indicates success. So a lot of people end up working in industries and they don't see that they're like ants and there's this whole other world above them, right?
I would say that I don't care about intent. I just want to point out what's actually happening. And I think that I would also say that I think it's more conspiratorial if they're not working together. That would be more insane if they weren't, you know? I think something like this chart helps us just focus on who the enemy is. Mm-hmm. And the enemy is, who the enemy is, and just seeing top down how it works. But I guess what was your question again? I'm sorry.
So I guess my I didn't really ask a question. I was just commenting, but I guess my question is, how do you propose that this is what we have to if these are our enemies, how do we defeat such a massive enemy? In terms of I think honestly the first step is letting people know about it and figure it out. And I think that something like this can be made accessible. I think once you wrap your head around it, you can sort of explain it to an extent. I'm working on this kind of what I'm trying to make it at least sort of funny web series episode about this, where I use videos and stuff like that about different aspects of the organizations. But I think it's just talking about it and explaining it. I mean, I don't know much about the Bank for International Settlements, right? Do you? No.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, but it's there. And now we're finding out, you know, in a way, this is all good stuff because it's like they've tipped their hand too fast. It's like they tried to pull off too much shit. This crazy ass plan, this crazy techno-fascist takeover that they're trying to implement for all of humanity. They're not necessarily going to pull this shit off, but but some of us have gotten hip to what they're trying to do, and we'll be fucking, you know, a big fucking come hell or high water. We're not going to let them fucking do it. So
it's arrogant. Their arrogance is their downfall, I think, because they largely think the vast majority of people are stupid, and they're not seeing this, and that they can manipulate the other portions with propaganda. And I mean, it is working in large aspects. I mean, the propaganda has worked on a lot of people, as we were just discussing. What we've seen, you know, people turn into people. I mean, I never thought that some people I knew that I was friends with for a long time would turn out to be the way they are when it comes to this COVID narrative. People have lost their brains, and it wasn't just with COVID; it was with Trump and the election before that, and it's been, you know, on and on since before. So it's just I think that they were arrogant, and I don't know.
I think they're so arrogant, and I think they think they know how we're supposed to live our lives better than we do. They think that, and they're ridiculous. You know what's crazy? The head of the Bank for International Settlements. When you see these people, his name is Augustin Carstens. And the dude, he just looks like a lump of a human being. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't have to be scared of all this stuff. I think it's scary because it's a mystery until it's not a mystery anymore. And so a chart like this pulls back the veil a little bit and makes you realize, like, they've just been dividing and conquering. Most people don't know what the hell's going on. They're just going along. Most people in the corporate media, they just think that they just want a job and are doing their thing.
Yeah.
You know? I mean,
well, they prey on their narcissism to get them in and recruit them. And I think that chart doesn't just tell you who your enemy is. I think it tells you who your enemy isn't, right? It's not your neighbor. It's not your Democrat. Your enemy is not a Republican. Look what's going on. These people are pulling the strings upstairs, and that bank of settlements, if you can compare it to Game of Thrones, I think it's that one island they went to for the right? What's that bank called?
That's exactly what I thought. I don't remember the name, but that's exactly.
I think they use the word Davos and stuff like that. But I want to talk a little bit more about Majid Nawaz right now. That the interview that's going around with Joe Rogan, and one of the clips that that I saw was he had talked about this captured elite, and he talked about he thinks that the Chinese have captured the elites of the Americans, the ruling class of the Americans, and now that they're pulling the strings. What are your thoughts on Xi Jinping's involvement with the World Economic Forum? And do you think that he's just, you know, or China? We've talked about this on the morning show. Do you think that China's more like pulling the strings or getting their strings pulled by the Western oligarchs?
Well, I listened to that podcast and I saw that clip of him talking about how he thinks China's captured the Western elites. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with his assessment of that, because I think that at the global level, China and the US are working together through Wall Street and also through entities like the World Economic Forum. So I don't know how it would be that China has captured the elites. And it doesn't seem like China has expansionary goals like that. Like, they're not really interested in trying to change the way they're not trying to change the way other people, they're not interested in trying to make people think the way the Chinese people think. At least that's what I've always historically heard. So I don't know about that, but in terms of Xi Jinping giving the keynote address after being at Davos, after being introduced by Klaus Schwab, I mean, come on. I mean, China has the most robust surveillance state in the world. We have a really big one, but China's is the leader. You got Eric Schmidt from Alphabet, from Google, saying how China, and saying this on a DOD committee about artificial intelligence, saying how China's lead in repressive surveillance over their people is so much better than ours, that it's creating a national security threat for us. And, you know, the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, they praise China for their response to the pandemic, which absolutely has been very authoritarian. And they also praise them for the level of technocracy and social credit that they've implemented. So why can't we critique China without immediately having to castigate the West, without at the same time letting the West off the hook for any of this shit that they did? If you look at the power nexus, we're talking about the national government level right there, you know? And I think that China and the US justify each other's war budgets. And I think that, yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. It's
What
interesting,
about
it's a
the
nuanced situation. Sorry,
yeah,
Sam, go ahead.
and I was just gonna say the Belt and Road Initiative has been hailed, and I think like I was just in Nicaragua, right? And in like a country like Nicaragua, where they're being sanctioned by the United States, that can create a lot of opportunities for their economy. Now, do they have a choice? I mean, they technically do have a choice. They're really good at sustainability. 90% of their food is in-house made, meaning like made in the country, and so they've managed to promote agricultural re-education into like how to grow food and stuff, which is something that I think we need to do here because of what's happening and like what, you know, creating those parallel structures and such. So a lot of the people have independently been going into that and figuring out how to do that. Now, is it a negative thing for a country like Nicaragua to be open to having a relationship with China via the Belt and Road Initiative, or countries like Iran that are constantly under threat of U.S. Hegemony?
You know what? I honestly don't know. I don't know if the Belt and Road Initiative is being done in good faith or not. I don't know if it's going to end up being some sort of IMF-esque kind of trap that China does, some sort of debt trap or something like that. I know that some countries seem to be thankful for it. Other countries seem to feel like now they're indebted and controlled by China. So I don't know. But also it's like, I like the idea of Nicaragua, which is so, you know, rich in resources, to not have to rely on a superpower to be able to subsist and to be able to be lifted out of poverty and have a good life.
Let's go to slide 34 real quick, Oz. We'll play this to get you out. J-Fod, I got a little clip here from the parliament in Canada. I don't know if you saw this clip, but I want to get your opinion on this one. This is great. Listen to this here, because it makes me happy that a lot of citizens, I think, are waking up to what's going on around us when it comes to the World Economic Forum, when it comes to Trudeau's past of Klaus just bragging about him as his boy. Take a look. You got it, Oz?
Whoa.
Really?
YouTube is such garbage.
No, they pulled it, Pasta. That is not surprising. But
what was a Canadian Parliament representative talking to the questioning, saying, hey, listen, that Klaus Schwab, because one of my constituents said that Klaus Schwab has bragged about some of the people in the governments and the parliament members that he has in control in Canada, and how many parliament members are there in control. And they immediately say, wait, well, I'm sorry, we couldn't hear the question. I'm so sorry. I know you, but let's bring you back in. Oh, we lost a phone call. Okay, let's go on. And they moved on. But they were shining a big spotlight on what was going on as far as the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab's grips and control he has on Canadian Parliament. So I just thought it was very interesting. I wanted you guys to see that one because it was pretty like, it was like, holy shit, this is bringing into the halls of Congress now of Canada. Look out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually heard the audio of that on a podcast. That was crazy. Yeah, this stuff is getting out. Like the people are finding out about Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum now, which is so funny because once you see him, he's just such a supervillain out of Central.
I know, it's like he looks like straight out of a fucking movie.
Bond movie.
Yes. like the Bond
But
villain.
you know, he's just the figurehead for power structure.
Yeah.
But why would they
Especially after
not
that chart.
pick? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Zoxovix, put the link up so people can see it. I wanted the audience to see it too as well. Zoxovix is going to put it up in the Rokfin chat. Fam, you got anything else to say to J Fod about his nice haircut and anything else he wants to help plug?
No, thank you for the chart. Thank you for explaining it so eloquently. I'm going to take a deeper look at that now, for sure. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
J Fod, tell us where we can find you, everybody out there. I was able to tell you the other day that, it was awesome to be collaborating with you, doing shows with you, talking about you. You know what I'm saying? When we started this thing almost 5 years ago, we dove a little bit into RT. We watched it quite a bit, and it's kind of great to still hear your voice on that channel today. When we started doing this, we were all about production. We said we don't want to just throw ourselves up into a video camera and just say whatever. We want to actually have a little production, and seeing you is like, a guy who's very, very entertaining and also brings the production side of it. I can't tell you enough how tickled pink I am to have you on and to be collaborating with you, brother. Really mean that.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate both of you, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. I think it's crucial and important. And and I feel aligned. I feel a kinship for sure, if I'm going to be honest. And there's a lot of work to do. You know?
Yeah, there is. Thank you for coming on.
Where can they find you? What do you got coming up with the slow moving chocolate factory or something, right? Your comedy.
Close. I got a new comedy album out. That would be awesome if everybody could check it out. All you have to do is go to jfodcomedy.com and you can check out my stand-up album. It's called The Manic Depressive Chocolate Fountain Operator. So that's the thing to do. And then the other thing to do is to join my newsletter at jfodnews.com. It's a Substack, so that would be cool if you guys join that. I would appreciate it.
Yeah. And you can go see a clip of that great joke about how to get out of a relationship using Buddhism. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's all about non-attachment, baby.
The Buddhism loophole, baby. We love you, J Fod.
All right, you guys rock.
Bye, Jay.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow, buddy.